Hello students, welcome back. It is now day 4 of Unit 4, as we can see. And yesterday with our online Zoom lesson, we finished up the water cycle together. Hopefully you guys are getting caught up on your water cycle stuff that we've had recently early this week, back from winter break. And we are now going to start off with the carbon cycle. I'm going to try and go over carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus cycle the next few days before we call it a day and just finish out the semester next week. Keep in mind, Friday this week and Thursday next week, we will not have lessons. So only a few more lessons this week and next week before we finish up, because there is no school next Friday. We have a full week this week, but next Friday we will not have school. Okay? So other than that, guys, like I said, getting caught up on missing work, turning in projects, completing, quizzes, and again, if you don't finish that stuff, there are zeros, your grade goes down. Don't want that to happen. And the only recent assignment we've got right now is the Unit 4 Vocab 1. We will have another notebook quiz coming up this Friday, so be ready for that notebook quiz this Friday. As for our Go Blue number 1 and this is going to be on page 5, guys, for our next Go Blue. We've now moved on from the water cycle. What is the difference between percolation and infiltration? Again, number 1, what is the difference between percolation and infiltration? Number 2, what is a fossil fuel and how do they relate to the carbon cycle? And number 3, what forms does carbon take in the carbon cycle? Okay, so some of this is going to be some new stuff, so maybe some prior knowledge a little bit, hopefully. But we're going to go ahead and check it out here in a moment. And again, please pause the video and write these down for your Go Blues on page 5. Okay, let's go. I'm going to have a video clip I want you guys to see about the carbon cycle. And you guys will watch this to kind of see how carbon does get cycled in the environment. And you got to think of carbon in the atmosphere, carbon in the ground, and carbon in living things, right? So what forms does that take? Well, in the atmosphere, plants breathe in oxygen. Plants breathe in carbon dioxide, breathe out O2. So in the atmosphere, it's going to be carbon dioxide. Okay, in the ground, eventually organisms pass away and they leave fossils, and sometimes that fossil becomes a fuel. So in the ground, we call those fossil fuels. And then in the in living things, when we eat food, right, that's going to be in the form of carbohydrates. So those are ways we see carbon in the environment. Again, check that video out on your own, because again, if I show all of it or show it with audio, YouTube will restrict and not be able to show my video. Okay, and then number 2, so that's answer to number 3. Number 1, what is the difference between percolation and infiltration? Okay, well, percolation is water seeping. Is when water collects in the lower ground, whereas infiltration is where water enters through the upper levels of soil. So percolation is the lower levels of soil, infiltration is the upper levels. That's number 2. Again, what are fossil fuels? It's organisms that have passed away, that have decayed into a material that can be used for fuel and energy, particularly fuel and energy that we burn as combustion. We'll learn about that later today as well. And like I said before, carbon dioxide, carbohydrates in the ocean, as well as fossil fuels, are going to be the different forms and places that we see carbon located in the carbon cycle. Go ahead and update your table of contents, guys. Pages 5 through 7. We have carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus cycles, which we are starting today. Pause the video and update that as you see fit. And then let's go ahead and remember, here's our first practice question of the day. Pause the video and then see if you get the right answer. This process involves water turning into vapor off the surface of plants. Water turning into vapor off the surface of plants. Is it A, evaporation, B, transpiration, C, accumulation, or D, percolation? What is it going to be? What is it going to be? The answer is going to pause the video, see what you know. Going to be letter B, transpiration. Evaporation off of anything else is just, like I said, evaporation, but evaporation off of plants' leaves. They have pores in their leaves. They sweat just like we do, but water, it's going to, but you know, evaporating water, that's going to be transpiration. Okay. Our video question today, guys, is number 1, are we running out of clean water? Explain. And 2, how do we improve water usage across the globe? So, could we ever run out of water? And are there ways we can improve it? Okay, important questions to ask. Let's go ahead and get a sneak peek of that. Otherwise, you need to watch all of it on your own to answer all those questions. It's going to take us through Microsoft. We're going to go straight to Microsoft Edge, hopefully, for that to transfer, unless I cancel it on accident. Oh, looks like I canceled it on accident. Or is it still loading? Let's try again. We'll try again. I guess I have to wait for it to load completely before it transfers to the other version of it, which is right here, as you can see. It's from Internet Explorer to what's called Microsoft Edge, which so far I can tell you guys, I think it's been a very...
After 30 days, I could not believe my before and after picture.
Okay. Again, advertisements for
this product, I thought...
From space, our planet appears
to... the Earth is never going to run out of water. The water cycle is always going to be happening. But the key thing is keeping that water sustainable and clean for our use, right? So if all the water on Earth becomes salt water, that's not good, right? We need fresh water. And believe it or not, most fresh water is frozen, right? And most fresh water is actually frozen in ice caps. If those ice caps melt, all that becomes salt water, right? Okay. So let's go ahead again. You need to watch all that on your own to answer all those questions. So are we going to run out of clean water? Potentially. Find out why from that video. And then how do we improve water usage across the globe? Well, we've got to, have more sustainable ways to keep water clean. But let's go to, I want you guys now to go to page 6. We're going to start off with carbon cycle. And we've already answered this video. How is carbon cycle in the environment? I showed that video. We're going to preview it as well. Carbon dioxide, fossil fuels, and carbon dioxide, fossil fuels, and we've got the carbohydrates when we consume them as food, right? What I want you guys to do is go ahead. I want you guys to, let's see, I'm going to ignore this one. I want you guys to write this as stated. I want you to write just a small section on page 6. It says carbon cycle. We're going to have little sections for each cycle. So I've just got 3 or 4 slides to show for today. We're going to go through each cycle each day and just write down everything you see on the screen here. Important stuff. Even though, because again, we do not have fill in the blanks to provide for you guys. So just write down everything you see here. So carbon cycle, what are the key substances? They are these 3, guys, these 2. Carbon dioxide, CO2. Again, the gas form of carbon, we just answered that through our video question. And then fossil fuels, which include coal, oil, and natural gas. Again, all used for energy, abundant, useful, but they can be they can cause pollution and cause an imbalance in our atmosphere. Next, what I want you guys to do, again, pause the video if I'm going too fast, is to draw this image on the top half of page 6 of your notebook. Okay, so you guys should be writing this stuff on actually page 7. This is going to be on page 6. Okay, so in my notebook, and it's only going to be on the top half. So in my notebook, I've got, okay, in my notebook, you're going to see on the top half that we did in previous years, we have it drawn out right here, carbon cycle. Okay, but keep some room because on the bottom half, tomorrow, we're going to draw the nitrogen cycle. Okay, so take some time, draw this image. That way we get a visualization of the carbon cycle. So what's happening here before we finish up here in a few minutes? All right, like I said before, carbon's in the ground as a fossil fuel. Humans collect it, dig it out of the ground. We burn it. From factories or cars, it's going to be in the atmosphere. In the atmosphere, that's going to be seen as carbon dioxide. We'll get into climate change. We'll get into Earth warming up from increased greenhouse gases, increased carbon CO2, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Now what happens? Plants help us out with that because they breathe in carbon dioxide, right? Plant respiration, synthesis, they breathe out oxygen for us to breathe, okay? And then animals are going to eat more of that carbon in the form of food. We know that as carbohydrates. But then those animals pass away and they become fossil fuels, right? So all of this, again, is how the carbon is cycled through the environment. We're going to draw that on page 6 on the top half to give you a visual. I'm likely going to ask for this on the next notebook check next week. So make sure we get that situated and we get that done. Okay? Let's go to move on. Here's our next section, guys. Got to write out the processes for the carbon cycle. We have photosynthesis, just mentioned that. Plants absorb the sun. They breathe in CO2, release oxygen. Okay? Well, I need to write that down on page 6. Oh, my bad. Page 7. Page 7. The substances was on page 7. Now the process is on page 7. Respiration is the opposite of photosynthesis. Is what humans do, what animals do. We breathe in oxygen, but we breathe out carbon dioxide, right? And then an important process called combustion. Okay? This is what happens in the factories. It's what happens in the cars. It's when we burn fossil fuels, burn gas, and make out of that CO2, but there's another byproduct from that. So combustion is anything burning. But the other product from that is going to be water. Other product from that is going to be water, guys. Water. Okay? Questions on that? We're all good? All right. Moving on, guys. Real quick, what are the 5 spheres of the Earth? We have the atmosphere, biosphere, geosphere, cryosphere, hydrosphere. Try to pause the video and take a guess at what each of these are. And after pausing, let's go through each of these. Atmosphere is for sky. No need to write these down. Do not write these down. These are just for reference. Just for reference. Biosphere is life, living things. Geosphere is earth and ground. Cryosphere is ice, like cryogenic, right? Hydrosphere is hydro, which is water. So what do we need to write down? Lastly, we need to write down 2 things for this compare and contrast. So how does carbon impact these 5 spheres? Okay. Well, in the atmosphere, okay, it's going to be carbon dioxide released as a greenhouse gas. In living things, we have carbon in all our bodies, and all living things have carbon in the form of carbohydrates largely. Okay. We're going to go ahead, and because we've had lots of videos today, I'm going to skip this video for us to save us time because I know we have a lot of writing, guys, so no need to worry about that video. Just got to save you guys some time today. Okay. And then lastly, guys, to end the day, we've got cryosphere, geosphere, and hydrosphere. Okay, so in ice, there's a lot of gas bubbles of carbon that are collected from CO2, maybe from recently, but also really cool. We find CO2 that was around during the Ice Age and maybe the prehistoric era. Okay, dinosaurs. Geosphere, a lot of carbon and rock. And then hydrosphere, carbon does collect in the oceans and in water as well. Okay, so make sure you have the substances on page 7 for the carbon cycle. You have the processes. And lastly, we see how it affects each different sphere of the Earth. Okay, I'll have those written out word for word for our next notebook check and for potentially for a new quiz coming up. I'm going to go ahead and play the combustion video tomorrow. We're going to move on to our question. What is the resulting product from combustion? What is the end result of combustion? Is it A, heat and CO2, B, heat and water, C, CO2 and water, or D, heat and oxygen? Again, think about what comes out of a car's tailpipe when it's burning gas, right? Well, you're going to have, to be specific, probably carbon dioxide, and you also sometimes have some liquid dripping out of that tailpipe. That liquid is water, guys. So letter answer is C, CO2 and water. That concludes our lesson for today, guys. Don't forget vocab due at the end of the week, Unit 4, vocab 1. We have a notebook check coming up next week and a quiz coming up this week. Mr. Campbell, if you have any questions, let me know on Canvas. This is Mr. Campbell signing.